Have you ever found yourself thinking, if only my husband would listen to me? Maybe there is something you wish he would change. Maybe you want him to be more responsible, more affectionate, more intentional with the family, more prayerful, or simply more considerate of your feelings. And because you love him, you keep talking about it. You explain. You remind him. You complain. You repeat yourself. You try different ways of saying the same thing. But somehow, the more you talk about it, the more distance seems to grow. If you have ever been in that situation, I want to encourage you today. You are not powerless, and you do not always have to use more words to make an impact. The Bible shows us that there are times when a woman's conduct, character, wisdom, and quiet strength can communicate what words cannot. This does not mean you should suppress your feelings or pretend everything is okay. It does not mean you should tolerate disrespect or abuse. And it certainly does not mean you should become silent whenever there is a problem. Rather, it means learning the difference between speaking because something needs to be said and speaking because you are desperate to make someone change. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is allow God to work through the woman you are becoming. So let's look at 3 biblical ways you can influence your husband without saying a word. 1. Let your godly character speak. One of the clearest scriptures on this is 1 Peter 3:1-2. Peter speaks about wives whose husbands may not respond to the word. He says they may be won over by observing their wives' lives, their conduct, reverence, and purity. Think about how powerful that is. Peter did not say, give him a longer lecture. He did not say, keep reminding him of everything he is doing wrong. He pointed to conduct. In other words, let your life speak. If your husband is becoming impatient, do not allow his impatience to turn you into an impatient woman. If he becomes harsh, ask God to help you remain gentle without becoming weak. If he is careless with something, do not allow his carelessness to make you careless with your own character. This is not about pretending his behavior does not hurt you. It is about refusing to let someone else's behavior determine who you become. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turneth away wrath." That verse is practical. Imagine your husband says something that irritates you. Your first instinct might be to respond immediately. You always do this. You never listen. I've told you this 100 times. But what if instead you pause? Take a breath. Pray silently. Then respond calmly. You are not surrendering your opinion. You are choosing the manner in which you communicate it. There is a difference. A godly woman does not need to scream to prove she is serious. She can be firm and gentle at the same time. She can say, I'm not comfortable with what happened and I would like to talk about it when we are both calm. That is strength. That is emotional maturity. That is allowing your character to speak. Practical step. This week, choose one area of your husband's behavior that normally triggers you. Before reacting, pray, Lord, help me respond in a way that represents you. Do not focus on changing his reaction. Focus on controlling yours. Because you cannot control your husband's character, but with God's help, you can work on yours. And sometimes, your consistency will speak louder than your complaints ever could. 2. Build your home with wisdom, not constant criticism. Proverbs 14:1 says, Every wise woman buildeth her house. I love that scripture because it does not say every perfect woman builds her house. It says the wise woman. A wise woman understands that marriage is not a competition between husband and wife. You do not have to win every disagreement. You do not have to prove you were right. You do not have to have the last word. Your goal should be to build. Ask yourself, is what I am about to say going to build this marriage? Or am I simply trying to release my frustration? Those are two different things. Ephesians 4:29 tells us to let our words build others up according to their needs. That applies inside your marriage too. For example, perhaps your husband helped with something around the house. Maybe it was not done exactly the way you would have done it. You could immediately point out everything he did wrong. Or you could acknowledge what he did right. You might say, "Thank you for helping me with that. I really appreciate it." That does not mean you can never discuss what needs improvement. It means you are learning to create an environment where appreciation exists alongside correction. People generally respond better when they feel respected rather than constantly criticized. This is where practical wisdom comes in. If there is an important issue you need to discuss with your husband, do not bring it up in the middle of anger. Do not unload 10 problems at once. Do not use words like always and never unless you truly mean them. Instead, choose a calm moment. Talk about one issue. Explain how the situation makes you feel. Then share what you would like to see change. For example, instead of, "You never help me with anything," you might say, "I've been feeling overwhelmed lately, and I would really appreciate it if you could help me with the children tonight." That is not weakness. That is wisdom. You are making your need clear without turning the conversation into an attack. Practical step. Before bringing a concern to your husband, ask yourself 3 questions. Is this necessary? Is this the right time? Can I say it with grace? If the answer to all 3 is yes, speak. If not, pause and pray first. Sometimes wisdom is knowing what to say, and sometimes wisdom is knowing when not to say it yet. 3. Let your peace show that your trust is in God. This may be the hardest one. Marriage can expose emotions you did not even know you had. When your husband disappoints you, ignores something important, or behaves differently from what you expected, it can be tempting to react immediately. But Scripture gives us another way. Philippians 4:6-7 tells us not to be anxious about anything, but to bring our concerns to God through prayer and thanksgiving. Then God's peace will guard our hearts and minds. Notice that your first response does not always have to be confrontation. Sometimes your first response can be prayer. Maybe your husband is making a decision you do not agree with. Before having the conversation, pray. Maybe you are frustrated because you feel unappreciated. Before sending that angry message, pray. Maybe you feel like your husband is not changing. Before becoming discouraged, pray. And when you pray, do not only pray, "God, change my husband." Also pray, "God, change me where I need to change. Give me wisdom. Teach me how to communicate. Help me know when to speak and when to stay quiet. Give me patience without making me passive. Give me courage to address what needs to be addressed. Help me become a place where your presence is honored." That kind of prayer changes something inside you, and when something changes inside you, it can change the atmosphere around you. Proverbs 31:26 says, "She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness." Look at that combination. Wisdom and kindness. Not silence, not fear, not manipulation. Wisdom. Kindness. A woman can be kind and still have boundaries. She can be peaceful and still speak up. She can respect her husband and still express disagreement. She can submit to God without surrendering her dignity. That is biblical strength. But chosen woman, hear this clearly: influencing your husband without saying a word is not a magic formula for making him change. You cannot control another person's heart. Only God can transform a heart. So do not turn this teaching into another burden where you think, "If I become perfect enough, my husband will automatically become the man I want him to be." No, you are responsible for your obedience to God. Your husband is responsible for his. Your job is not to save your husband. Your job is to walk faithfully with God. And sometimes walking faithfully with God will require you to speak. If something is seriously wrong in your marriage, do not hide it behind fake peace. If there is abuse, seek appropriate help. If there is betrayal, address it. If there is persistent disrespect, establish healthy boundaries and seek wise counsel. Silence should never be used to protect wrongdoing. The goal is not silent suffering. The goal is godly influence. There is a difference. Your 3 reminders. So, chosen woman, remember these 3 things. Number 1, let your character speak. Do not allow your husband's weaknesses to pull you away from the woman God is calling you to become. Number 2, build your home with wisdom. You do not have to win every argument. Choose words that bring clarity, grace and understanding. Number 3, let your peace testify that you trust God. Pray before you react. Ask God for wisdom before you speak. And remember that you are not responsible for controlling another person's heart. You are responsible for your own obedience. Maybe you have been frustrated because you have talked and talked, but nothing seems to change. Today, I want you to breathe. You do not have to carry the entire marriage on your shoulders. You can pray. You can grow. You can communicate wisely. You can set healthy boundaries. And you can trust God with what you cannot control. Isaiah 30:15 says, "In quietness and confidence shall be your strength." There is strength in quietness. There is strength in wisdom. There is strength in self-control. And there is strength in trusting God. So do not underestimate the power of the woman you are becoming. You may not be able to change your husband, but you can become a woman whose life reflects Christ so clearly that her home feels the difference. And sometimes the most powerful message you can give is not another lecture. It is the consistent testimony of a woman who has decided to walk with God. So, chosen woman, keep praying, keep growing, keep loving wisely, keep speaking when God gives you wisdom to speak, keep silent when silence is wiser. And above everything else, keep your heart surrendered to God. Because when God is working on you, He can use your life in ways your words never could. You are not powerless. You are being transformed. And your influence begins with the woman you choose to become.